Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Tonya, and it is time for our Wednesday night jam class. Now, I told you last week, if you remember, that I would be out of town this week. So hopefully you got to Zoom with Miss Tina for a few minutes, which would be a really big treat for you guys. And now you can watch the video that talks about what we're learning about. We are talking about God is so big. And we've learned some important things so far, and tonight we're going to learn some more things. So the first week we talked about how we can't see God with our ears, we can't hear him with our ears, we can't touch him with our hands, but we know he's there. And you probably remember the way we know God is there is because we can see the things he's done. So we have a picture on our bulletin board of the clouds and the trees because those are super cool things that God made for us. We also have a picture of a beautiful sunset, which God paints with all the colors that he has. He makes things beautiful for us in our world, and we can look at those things and know that God is really there. And then last week, we talked about these big old ears and these glasses. Now we know that God does not have ears that look like this, but we talked about how God can hear everything all at the same time. Even if we're all talking to him at the same time, he can hear all of us. In fact, we don't even have to say things out loud. He can understand what we're thinking about without us even having to say it. And then we talked about the fish. Remember that you could see through and see where his backbone was? And we talked about that being X-ray vision. Our doctors have things that they can use, machines they can use to take X-rays that will show them what our bones look like. But God doesn't need the machine. God can see all the way through us. He can see the outside part of us. He can see the inside part of us. He can see what our heart is like. He knows how we're feeling and what we're thinking about all the time because our God is so powerful. So we put our glasses up there, not because God needs glasses, but because we want to remember that he has X-ray vision. He sees and knows everything without having to have any special machines. Now, here's the other really cool thing, and I don't know that I remembered to tell you this last week. God can see when we're standing up, when we're sitting down. He knows how many hairs are on our head. He can also see when we're being good and when we're being bad. But even when we're not choosing to do good things, when we're not choosing to be good sometimes, God still loves us anyway because his love is so big that he can love us even when we aren't making the best choices sometimes. Now tonight we are going to talk about ways that God takes care of us. Jesus, when he lived on earth, was one of the best teachers ever. In fact, he was the best teacher ever. And he would travel from town to town and people would come to listen to him and he would teach them about God and about the things that we needed to know about God and how to do things that would please God. And the people really liked to listen to him because he would use things that made it easy for him to understand. And on this particular day, Jesus was sitting out on the hillside with a bunch of people, and they were all sitting there and listening to him. And you can just imagine, think about if you looked up, you could see birds flying. I've got some little birds here. I'm not sure how well you can see that. And I'm going to make him fly. Oops, he did not fly very well, did he? There he goes. Now he's flying. I've got another one. These birds are all kinds of different colors. You can see I've got one on our bulletin board to help us remember about this. And Jesus said, look up at the birds. Do you think they grow their own food? Do they have barns that they store it in? Do they have to gather the grain and store it in the barn so they'll have food for the winter? No. The birds don't have to do that. The birds don't plant seeds and grow food. We know who takes care of the birds, right? God does. God feeds the birds. And then Jesus said something very interesting. He said, you are much more important to God than the birds are. That's an interesting thing to say, right? And then he said, look around at all the flowers blooming. Just imagine if they were on a big hillside, there were probably lots of flowers blooming. Now I have a really silly flower for my lesson tonight, and I'm going to put this on the bulletin board a little later, so it'll be up there next week when you see it. Let's see if I can get it to turn the right direction. It's hard for me with this Zoom thing. There you go. Jesus said, look at all those flowers and how beautiful they are. Do they have to make their clothes? Do they have to sew and make their beautiful clothes that they wear? Well, no. Flowers don't make their clothes. Who makes the flowers beautiful? God does, of course. And Jesus said, not even the richest king had as beautiful a clothes as the flowers do. Now think about that. You've seen lots of flowers, right? They come in all kinds of colors. Sometimes they're even more than one color, and they're beautiful, beautiful. The flowers don't work to make their clothes. They don't worry about what they're going to look like. They don't worry about whether they're prettier than the flower next to them. They just be as pretty as God made them, which is really beautiful. And then Jesus said something really interesting. He said, God knows what you need, and he will take care of you. So he was telling the people there that day, don't worry about that stuff. God's powerful enough and big enough and loves you enough to take care of what you need. So don't worry about your food and don't worry about your clothes, because if God takes care of the birds and the flowers, and you are much more important to God than birds and flowers, then surely he's going to take care of you too. Now that is good news. That is good to know that God loves us that much. And that's what I want you to remember about our big, big, powerful God from tonight's lesson, is that you don't have to worry about that stuff because God knows what you need. Now, sometimes God gives us things in ways that aren't exactly the way he would give them to birds and flowers. He probably gave you moms and dads to help take care of you. He gives you clothes in the summertime that don't be so hot, and he gave you clothes in the wintertime that keep you warm. He gives us good, healthy food. Sometimes we don't make the best choices with our food, but God provides what we need. Now, tonight's, I wanted to tell you, these little birds that I had, if you look in your packet tonight, you should have a little package that looks like this, which I've got upside down, or it might be this color. And if you open that up, you've got the things you need to make one of these little birds that will fly. And maybe you can make yours fly a little bit better than Miss Tonya can. The other things that are in your packet for tonight is you've got a worksheet, and you can see it's got flowers on it, it's got birds on it, it's got butterflies on it, and it's the same and different. So you're supposed to try to figure out which ones are the same and which ones are different. I always love those kind of worksheets. Your craft for tonight is to make a flower from seeds. So you should have something that looks like this in your package, and you should have some seeds. And you can get mom or dad or an older sister or brother to help you put glue on here and put your seeds on it and make a beautiful flower. You can make it any way you want to, because God makes flowers all different ways. And then the last thing tonight for your package is your snack. And I gave your mom and dad a heads up last week, so I hope they paid attention. The snack this week is not in your package, but we want you to have just a healthy snack. Probably have things in your refrigerator that mom can do for you that's a healthy snack, like maybe some carrots or apple or grapes or celery, something healthy, because we want to remember that God gives us good food that makes us strong and healthy. Okay, so let's do our memory verse, and you can help me do that together. We're not going to try to sing tonight because I know you guys aren't watching at the same time that I'm making it, but I do want to go over your memory verse. because you've been learning that in peak too. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. We'll do it and do the motions with it. And I want to see who all knows their memory verse. In fact, if you want to, have mom or dad text Miss Tonya and tell me if you know your memory verse. That would be very cool. Ready? It's from Isaiah 2:3. You've been learning it in peak. It's got the motions. It says, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord. He will teach us his ways, that we may walk in his paths. That is such a cool memory verse to know, because that's exactly what God does. He teaches us what we need to do to obey him and to worship him and to love him, because he loves us so, so much. All righty. Next week, I will be back in town, so I'll get to Zoom with you guys, and I love seeing you guys. I saw a couple of people at church on Sunday. I saw Joel, and I saw Emery, and I'm thinking I saw somebody else. But now I can't remember, because sometimes Miss Tonya just doesn't remember everything. But I look forward to seeing all of you again, and I will see you next Wednesday night for our Zoom class. Have a good week.